used to tell myself my name didn't matter, that the work was the only thing that counted. I built an empire for someone else, coded its foundations, designed its architecture, and polished its public face until it shone. In return, I received pats on the back, praise for my adaptability, and the privilege of watching other people, men I had personally trained, put their names on my blueprints. I was the ghost in the machine, the silent partner in my own erasure. And for a long time, I convinced myself that being a ghost was a noble sacrifice.
How many of us have made ourselves smaller to fit into spaces that were never designed for us? Today, we hear the powerful story of Elara Vane, a brilliant mind from New York who was systematically erased from her own success story. I'm Susan Bentley, and this is Unbroken Women, the place where we find strength in the stories that were never meant to be told. Get ready to listen, because Elara's journey from invisible labor to undeniable worth is one you won't forget.
My world was built on order. My apartment was a testament to minimalism and control. Everything had its place. My shoulder-length bob was always perfectly styled. My navy and gray business suits were always pressed. I was Elara Vane, the indispensable head of operations at a thriving tech startup. My calendar was a fortress of scheduled calls, project deadlines, and development sprints. I was the first one in, the last one out. The founder, a charismatic man named Julian, called me his secret weapon. I organized his vision, fixed his mistakes, and translated his chaotic genius into functional, profitable code. At home, my partner Mark saw the long hours and the dedication. He was supportive in that oblivious way loving partners can be. He'd rub my shoulders and say, "You're carrying that whole company, Elle," and I'd smile, feeling a little thrill of pride. I saw myself as the ultimate team player. I believed in the mission, in the collective we. I genuinely thought that sacrificing personal recognition was a small price to pay for being part of something big. The promotions that went to the junior developers I'd personally mentored, that was just building a strong team. My name not being on the patent filings for algorithms I wrote from scratch, that was just streamlining the paperwork. I was meticulously organized, quietly determined, and completely, utterly blind to the fact that I was building my own cage, one self-sacrificing act at a time. The weight wasn't a sudden thing. It was a slow, creeping accumulation, like dust settling in a forgotten room. It was the constant hum of anxiety under the surface of my calm, professional demeanor. It was the feeling of shrinking every time Julian presented my work as his own in a boardroom. I'd sit in the back, silent, my hands clasped tightly in my lap, while he used my phrases, my data, my conclusions. My body kept the score. Sleep became a battleground. I'd lie awake for hours, my mind replaying conversations, debugging code, and drafting emails I would never send. Then came the panic attacks. They were quiet, insidious things. A sudden shortness of breath in the middle of a meeting, a cold sweat breaking out while I was staring at my monitor. I'd excuse myself, lock myself in a bathroom stall, and focus on the cold tiles until the world stopped spinning. I told no one. To Mark, I blamed stress and caffeine. To my colleagues, I was the unflappable Elara. The weight was my secret, a lead vest I wore under my impeccably tailored blazer. The first crack appeared on a Tuesday. I was training a new hire, a young, confident guy named Kevin. We were going over the back-end architecture for our flagship product, Helios. He was sharp, and he asked, "So who was the lead architect on this? It's genius." I opened my mouth to say, "I was," but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I heard myself say, It was a team effort, but Julian's vision really drove it. The lie tasted like ash. Kevin nodded, impressed. Of course. The guy's a legend. He then asked me for advice on how to get noticed by Julian, how to get on the fast track for a promotion. I gave him the advice. I told him which metrics to highlight, how to frame his successes, how to speak up in meetings, all the things I never did for myself. That night, I couldn't sleep at all. For the first time, a whisper of a thought, venomous and terrifying, slithered into my mind. What if the team isn't real? What if it's just you and a man who takes the credit? I pushed it down, horrified. It felt like a betrayal. But the whisper didn't go away. It just got quieter, waiting. The project was codenamed Prometheus. It was my baby. For 6 months, I had worked in near total secrecy, building a revolutionary analytics engine from the ground up. I worked weekends, pulled all-nighters, and poured every ounce of my skill and creativity into it. It was the most complex, elegant piece of work I had ever created. I presented the finished product to Julian in his office. He was ecstatic. Elara, this is it. This is the game changer. My heart swelled with a rare, uncomplicated pride. 2 weeks later, the entire company was gathered in the main conference room. A major venture capital firm was there. Julian stood at the podium, beaming. He announced a $50 million Series B funding round. The room erupted in cheers. And the reason for the funding? A revolutionary new analytics engine, Julian announced, a project I have been personally developing in stealth for the last 6 months. He never said my name, not once. He walked the investors through my slides, explained my code using my analogies, and took a bow as my work secured the company's future. I stood in the crowd, frozen. My smile felt like a plaster mask cracking on my face. The applause was deafening, but all I could hear was a roaring in my ears. After the presentation, as champagne was being poured, Julian found me. He threw an arm around my shoulder, his voice booming. "We did it!" He slipped an envelope into my hand. "A little something for all your hard work." He gave me a patronizing pat on the back and moved on, the star of the show. I opened an envelope. It was a check for $5,000, a bonus. $50 million for him, $5,000 for me. The illusion didn't just crack, it shattered into a million pieces at my feet. My first instinct was to rationalize. It's the company that matters, I told myself. The money benefits everyone. A rising tide lifts all boats. I repeated the mantras that had sustained me for years. But they were hollow, meaningless. The fear was overwhelming. What could I even do? If I spoke up, I'd be labeled difficult, disgruntled, not a team player. I'd be the woman who couldn't handle the pressure. Julian was the face of the company. He was beloved by the press and our investors. Me? I was a name on an org chart. My reputation, my career, it was all tied to him. To challenge him would be professional suicide. At home, Mark saw the bonus check on the counter. "Hey, $5,000. Nice," he said, kissing my cheek. "Pizza and fancy beer to celebrate?" I nodded, unable to speak. The words, "He stole $50 million worth of my work," turned to acid in my stomach. The fear wasn't just about my job. It was about my identity. For years I had been Elara the fixer, Elara the dependable one. If I wasn't that, who was I? The thought of that confrontation, of the disbelief and dismissal in their eyes, paralyzed me. My hands would start to tremble just thinking about it. So I did nothing. I cashed the check, I went to work, I smiled, and I tried, desperately, to piece the shattered illusion back together. It happened 2 days later. I was in the office bathroom, staring at my reflection in the mirror. My face was pale, my eyes hollow. I looked like a stranger. My phone buzzed. It was a tech blog article someone had shared in the company's Slack channel. The headline was, Julian Croft, tech's newest visionary, secures $50 million on the back of his solo genius. The article quoted him extensively. He talked about his late nights in the lab, his moment of inspiration, his unwavering belief in his creation. My creation. I felt a sudden, terrifying lightness in my head. My breath hitched. I couldn't seem to pull in enough air. The sleek, minimalist bathroom started to tilt. I leaned against the cool marble of the sink, my knuckles white. My chest was a band of steel, tightening. I started to hyperventilate, my gasps silent and desperate. My vision tunneled. A tingling started in my fingertips, a terrifying numbness that spread up my arms. I couldn't feel my hands. It was as if they weren't even mine. In that moment of pure animal panic, a single, horrifyingly clear thought cut through the noise. I am a ghost in my own life. I am not even here. The weight I had been carrying didn't just break me, it annihilated me. The old Elara, the good soldier, the quiet fixer died right there on the cold floor of the executive bathroom. I don't know how long I was on the floor. When I finally pushed myself up, something had shifted. The panic was gone, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. The fear was still there, a knot in my gut, but it was no longer in charge. A different emotion was burning through it. Shame. Shame that I had let this happen. And beneath the shame, a flicker of pure, unadulterated rage. I went back to my desk. My hands were still trembling slightly, but my movements were precise. I opened a new, password-protected document on my personal laptop. The title was simple, The Ledger, and I started to write. I documented everything. Every line of code for Prometheus, every uncredited project, every sexist microaggression, every dismissive comment, every stolen idea. I attached dates, emails, and screenshots. It felt like a profound betrayal of the person I was supposed to be. But for the first time in years, it also felt like an act of rebellion. It was quiet, it was secret, but it was a decision. I was done being a ghost. I was going to build my own record. For a week, the ledger was my secret. It grew daily, a meticulous archive of my own erasure. But documentation wasn't enough. I knew I needed guidance, a strategy. The thought of hiring a lawyer felt too aggressive, too final. So I did something that terrified me even more. I found a nonprofit online, a women's advocacy group specializing in workplace equity in the tech sector. My heart hammered against my ribs as I filled out their confidential contact form. I used a pseudonym. I described my situation in vague, sanitized terms. Hitting send felt like jumping off a cliff. For 2 days, I heard nothing. I checked my anonymous email account 100 times a day, a knot of anxiety tightening in my stomach. Then, an email appeared. It was from a senior advisor. "Your story sounds familiar," it began. "We can help you understand your options. No obligation." Just reading those words, "we can help," was like a gulp of fresh air after years of suffocation. That small, digital step was the most defiant thing I had ever done. It was terrifying, yes, but it was also exhilarating. It was the first note in a song that was entirely my own. My conversations with the advocacy group gave me a new vocabulary, credit attribution, pattern of behavior, intellectual property. Armed with this, I decided to test the waters. It was a small thing. A minor software patch I developed was about to be rolled out. In the team meeting, when Julian was about to announce it, I spoke up. My voice was steady, but my heart was racing. "I'd just like to add," I said, "that I'm happy to field any technical questions since I was the lead on this patch." The silence was immediate and heavy. Julian's smile tightened just a fraction. "Of course," he said smoothly. "Elara's contribution was helpful." The word helpful was a slap in the face. After that, the change was subtle but chilling. I was slowly, methodically frozen out. I was left off crucial email chains. My key projects were reassigned to Kevin, the guy I trained. Julian started assigning me meaningless administrative tasks, market research on long-dead competitors, organizing old server files. It was a clear, unspoken message: stay in your place or become irrelevant. My colleagues, sensing the shift in power, grew distant. The friendly chats in the kitchen stopped. I was being isolated, professionally quarantined. It was psychological warfare, and it was brilliant in its cruelty. He wasn't firing me. He was making me want to leave. He was making me invisible all over again, but this time it was a punishment. The isolation was a breeding ground for doubt. Every night my mind would churn. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I overreacted. I had a good job, a good salary. Why did I have to blow it all up over a little credit? The loneliness was the worst part. I was fighting a war no one else could see. I would look at Mark, so blissfully unaware of the storm raging inside me, and feel a pang of something that felt like grief. I missed the comfort of the familiar pain. At least then I knew the rules. Now I was in a terrifying no man's land. I would stare at my meticulously compiled ledger and wonder if I was just being paranoid, if I had invented this whole narrative of victimhood. The mental exhaustion was bone deep. Every morning, putting on my professional mask and walking into that office felt like wading into enemy territory. The temptation to just apologize, to go back to being the good soldier, was a constant siren song. The breaking point came in the form of an HR meeting. Julian wasn't there. It was just me and the head of human resources. She slid a thick envelope across the table. "We feel your role is no longer a strategic fit for the company's new direction," she said, her voice devoid of emotion. Inside was a generous severance package and a non-disclosure agreement that would gag me forever. All I had to do was sign. All the fight went out of me. I was exhausted, hopeless. That evening, I showed the offer to Mark. I finally told him everything. The stolen credit, the isolation, the ledger. He listened, his face etched with worry. He held my hand. "Elara, this is awful," he said. "But this is a lot of money. We could pay off our debts. Maybe you should just take it. Just sign it and be done with them. We can move on." He meant well. He was scared for our financial future. But hearing those words from him, the one person I thought would tell me to fight, it broke me. I felt utterly, completely alone. I looked at the NDA. Maybe he was right. Maybe my talent was worthless if no one would acknowledge it. I was a hair's breadth from signing. I was ready to be erased. That night, unable to sleep, I was scrolling through my old college contacts. I saw the name of my favorite professor, Dr. Anya Sharma. She was the one who first told me I had a rare gift for systems architecture. On a desperate whim, I called her. It was late, but she picked up. I told her everything, my voice cracking. I told her I was about to sign the NDA, to let it all go. She was silent for a moment. Then she said something that changed my life. "Elara," she said, her voice firm and warm, "geniuses like Julian are a dime a dozen. They have ideas, but people like you, the ones who can actually build the universe from the idea, you are the rarest thing in this industry. Do not let that man, or any man, erase your name from your own work." She didn't just validate my pain. She validated my talent. She reminded me of my own core worth. Before we hung up, she said, "I know some people, ethical investors. People who value architects, not just showmen. Let me make a call. It wasn't a rescue. It was a spark. It was everything. I didn't sign the NDA. The next day, I walked into HR and respectfully declined their offer. The look on the HR director's face was a picture of disbelief. I walked out of that building for the last time, not with the severance check, but with my ledger and my dignity. The climb back was slow and deliberate. With the help of the advocacy group and Dr. Sharma's connections, I began a new strategy. I started to leak anonymous, data-driven information from my ledger to respected tech journalists and bloggers. I never mentioned Julian or my company by name. Instead, I exposed patterns, statistical analyses of how often women's code contributions are attributed to male leads in startups, case studies of credit theft in Series B funding rounds. I was telling my story without ever saying my name. But this time, it was my choice. It was strategic. I was setting boundaries, not just for myself, but for others. I was fighting back, not with anger, but with data, my truth. The articles caused a stir. Quietly, my name started to circulate in the right circles, not as a victim, but as an untapped asset. A rival startup, founded by a woman I respected, reached out. She had been one of the ethical investors Dr. Sharma had contacted. She didn't just offer me a job. She offered me a co-founder title and a significant equity stake. "I don't just want your code," she told me. "I want your voice in the boardroom." The first time I presented our strategy to investors, I stood at the podium and I introduced myself. "My name is Elara Vane, co-founder and chief architect." The words felt solid, real. I was no longer shrinking. I no longer needed anyone else's applause to feel my own worth. I was whole, powerful, and utterly, unapologetically me. Sometimes I think about that woman in the gray suit, the one who believed her invisibility was a virtue. I want to reach back and tell her, I see you. I see your brilliance, even if you don't. And I tell her this, your brilliance isn't validated by others' applause. It's owned by you. It exists the moment you create it. Never, ever let them erase your name. Your name is the first thing you own. Defend it, celebrate it, and build your own damn empire.
Thank you, Elara Vane, for showing us the profound power of owning your own name. Her story is a testament to the fact that our worth is not defined by who gives us credit, but by the truth of what we create. If Elara's journey resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe to Unbroken Women for more stories of incredible resilience. And click here to watch another woman's journey from silence to strength.